Hello, good to see everybody again for another after hours broadcast. I got a lot to go through tonight. Going to about talk a little bit about the all the infighting that's going on in the right wing coalition, and also a whole bunch of updates with Trump trying to launch new wars and stuff like that, and also new Epstein updates too. And after that, we'll continue on the Epstein research that we've been doing for the past week with his intelligence connections. And yeah, I keep on forgetting to like promote myself and my stuff as we go through this, but I do have a book, Paper Squares and Purple Stars: My Life as a Rave Outlaw. It's a memoir. I have a few other books too. You could find them just searching my name. I wrote the Conscious Resistance trilogy with Derek Bros, and I have Alchemy of the Timeless Renaissance from like 10 years ago. I'm not sure how relevant a lot of the stuff is anymore. Some of it is, but yeah, so I'm just waiting for a couple people to jump in here, but I should get started with the all of the infighting that's been happening among the MAGA coalition. And this was kind of like bound to happen because political movements have a life cycle. And with both Trump's age and the kind of tides turning with some of the things that he's been doing getting like unpopular, there has been like a split. And I cynically, like, I think it's more of a people see a power vacuum than people are going to really feel differently about their politics, I think, is a lot of the situation that's happening. One of the divides is definitely among like how strongly nationalistic they're going to be. There was a big blow up between Vivek Ramaswamy and Nick Fuentes about like what is a real American, with Vivek pushing back against the whole, white heritage or how long your lineage has been here. But he's also wrong because he says that, being a real American is all about your ideology, when really that whole conversation is about finding ways to exclude people. Like, as far as I'm concerned, whoever a human being that lives within this borders for any length of time is a real American. Because what does the conversation mean anyway? The whole point of the conversation is to decide who deserves rights, essentially. And that's, the whole conversation. And that's one of the things that I think is important to notice, is these kind of layered conversations that they're having. Um, the whole real Americans thing and the argument about who is one and who isn't one is a giant euphemism for whose rights can we take away. Um, while at the same time, there's been this massive thing with Marjorie Taylor Greene and Trump, mostly over the Epstein files. And there was this big New York Times piece that came out today. And unfortunately, it is behind a paywall, but somebody put out a pretty good summary of it that goes into a lot of, what was said. I'm going to share my screen real quick. Let's see. And yeah, I'm sure somebody like looks like they did it with AI, but this is one of the best summaries that I could find. So from the article, the breaking point was Epstein. MTG says her decisive split with Trump wasn't about ego or style, but about his refusal to release all Epstein-related investigative material. She describes Epstein as the ultimate symbol of elite protection and systemic cover-ups. Trump's tried to stop it after Green pushed publicly for transparency and threatened to expose abusers tied to survivor testimony. She says Trump called her angrily and warned, "My friends will get hurt." Green presents this as Trump choosing to shield people in his orbit rather than side with victims. So, yeah, this thing here, "my friends will get hurt," maybe that is the truth, but like, who knows him to have any friends or care about people on that level? Like, friends to him are a currency to be used and discarded. So, I think that he might be more worried about him than his friends, but even if he's worried only about his friends and he isn't implicated, which we already know isn't true, um, it still stands to reason that he's not disputing any of the information that is contained within the things that he's still holding back. He's just worried about who will get hurt from it, even if those people are guilty. And it's very interesting because I've kind of noticed over the past couple years with a lot of the way that things have developed, it is very easy for them or people at high levels in politics or people who have a lot of money in the probably hundreds of millions and billions of dollars. It's very easy for them to avoid legal accountability because they could just pay it off or just get a really good lawyer and get a very short sentence. Um, but reputational damage is really the only thing that seems to actually hurt them, and even then it's hardly justice, but that's just something that I've definitely noticed. And she says that Trump's Epstein stance looks like self-protection. Yeah, which is exactly what I was just explaining. She explains that she initially accepted the narrative that Trump had cut ties with Epstein and that the photos proved nothing by themselves, but once she heard victims directly and saw how hard the administration resisted disclosure, she concluded that the resistance itself was the red flag. She broke MAGA discipline anyway. Green teamed up with Thomas Massie, Ro Khanna, as we know, to force the vote compelling the DOJ disclosure. Retaliation followed. And this kind of also gets into the death threat that she got and kind of her political break, which is, not as relevant. But I think the very telling thing is that he is revealing like his friends are going to get hurt or he is. And that is, one of the things that's holding him back from that. Exactly. He is his own friend. Uh, yeah. Good evening to everybody as well. So yeah, there's that whole thing. And I'm not sure what her plan is for the future if she's like trying to get into politics. I'm still not a fan either way. Yeah, that's another story we're gonna get to in a minute, actually. Yeah, let me go back to the bookmarks and let's see what else there is. Yeah, there is also one of the other issues that she broke from him was on the war issue, even though I'm not too sure if she's genuine about the foreign policy things that she's put forward. A lot of the things with the America First people that I've noticed is that um their anti-war stance is a lot different than mine in many cases because mine is like for a desire for humanitarianism and for us to stop killing people and to stop pushing for this unipolar world where everything is controlled by the US dollar. But in their case, a lot of times they just don't want tax money to be spent elsewhere. They want it to be spent here, and they still really support the unipolarity of the United States military being the world police when it comes down to it. So we'll see how that plays out. But we still have multiple situations developing now. Trump has announced today that he has conducted drone strikes in Venezuela. So it's kind of disputed at this point how much damage was done. I think a lot of people in Venezuela are saying that there hasn't been much damage and that they're trying to provoke an attack. I'll get to a take on that later. But this apparently happened a while ago. Let's see if we can get some information in here. Um, yeah, I was looking. I think it said weeks ago. I'm just trying to get the exact date there. Attack in an first acknowledged the attack in an interview last week that initially attracted little notice, though he offered few specifics. Okay, so it looks like this has happened quite a while ago, And Trump acknowledged in an interview on December 26th that the U.S. had knocked out some type of big facility where ships come from. Of course, there's still been no like conclusive evidence that these ships are doing anything, and if so, trafficking cocaine is not really a death sentence, and if it is, Donald Trump would definitely be guilty from those articles that we saw last night about what was going down at the Plaza Hotel. So the other major thing that was happening this week or today actually was Netanyahu's visit to uh, not DC. I think it was Mar-a-Lago actually, and this was actually some of the things that have happened, like the recognition of Somaliland, and that whole situation in general has even been unpopular within Israel. And it's been pretty much unpopular all over the world except for in Somaliland, where obviously they're being recognized as a state. But the they're the only country to ever us Israel and the US now are the only countries to recognize Somaliland as a state. And it seems that the obvious reason is because they want that to be a part of the ethnic cleansing plan where they move the Palestinians there, because nobody else in the region wants to really participate in that. And that is what is, kind of most people are saying at this point. But this was even being opposed by people in Israel. Israeli opposition leader Yair Lapid lashed out at Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu on Monday over Israel's recognition of the breakaway region of Somaliland in his talks with U.S. President Trump without a clear plan for Gaza. So even within, they are starting to recognize that, like, you can't you can't just kick the people out of Gaza, because then the whole world is not going to stand for that. So it- you know, the unfortunate thing is that they're probably still gonna try, and that is the messed up thing. Um, yeah, yeah, yeah. Exactly, they promised no wars, and now we're getting wars all over the place. And the the issue in, South America is actually quite a continuation of, um of what our country has built there, the colonialism that our country has built there. And I'm actually working on a documentary on that I might actually do live. So we'll see about that probably in the next couple weeks. But this is another take that I saw that is quite interesting about this. And this is kind of under the radar. Trump has been bombing the hell out of Somalia, and it's it's being suspected that it it's kind of part of this orchestration, like part of this whole plan to move the refugees there. So this is the let's see how many drone and air and ground operations in Somalia, and this is 2025. So this whole year, this has been kind of ramping up, and this is really the first that most people, at least through the mainstream media, is hearing about any kind of conflict with Somalia or any kind of reason for Somalia. The other thing is that it is in a very important strategic location for all the shipping there near the Red Sea. So that is, definitely kind of sketch. And I was seeing something from Drop Site News just an hour or two ago. This is very recent news. I didn't even really get a chance to read this yet, but it says the U.S. is warning Sudan's army against further escalation, urging negotiations instead of new offenses as the war grinds into its third year. So this is Sudan, and this is not far. I mean, it's a few countries over, but I'm saying you see the Red Sea there. So I find that interesting. I'm not sure if this is connected, but I see them really trying to consolidate power in this Red Sea area. Um, in a statement on Monday, State Department Principal Deputy Spokesman, that's a lot of titles. Tommy Pigott said Wednesday is deeply concerned by Sudanese armed forces rhetoric demanding military solutions and imposing preconditions for any truce. So, yeah, I mean, they're just threatening a whole bunch of different countries in the region at this point. The US government is. And it is, looking kind of sketch. This was supposed to be the peace president, even though anybody who paid attention during the first term would not would not have believed that. So meanwhile, we have Iran as well during the meeting with Netanyahu today.
Today is why we wear the uniform, to ensure the safety of all Angelinos.
Of course,
I'll do my best.
that's terrible.
But don't do your best. Do my best.
I'm gonna have to find another link because that's unacceptable. But yeah, let me look up another link for that. But yeah, so meanwhile, we got this thing going on in Iran where Netanyahu comes and he starts talking about how they have missiles that can go real far and they're building nukes again and the same old story. And then Trump comes out and starts making threats about Iran, saying that if they're going to rebuild, then we're going to have to bomb them again. And so while that is happening, there's also these very kind of sketchy protests going on in Iran. Of course, people do have reason to protest. The currency is collapsing, and there are a bunch of issues like that. But at the same time, you know how the U.S. government is always trying to exacerbate um, issues abroad. And they try to, anytime they see a protest, they try to take advantage of it and increase the intensity and make sure that their people are kind of leading the opposition so they end up getting in power. We're seeing the same thing with Venezuela right now with the Nobel Peace Prize winner that wants her country bombed. But it turns out that she is from some massive industry. Her family, she's a descendant of some massive industry who that industry was nationalized by Maduro. So that is a lot of the motivation there. So let's see what I was looking for. Yeah, so I'm seeing some footage here that there's just like there are protests, they are serious, but at the same time, y- you know, what we see from the news should definitely be taken with a grain of salt for sure. Oh yeah, and there was this crazy thing just offhand about the police in the UK. This is a very small story, but it is wild. Like I thought that they were hacked at first, but the Metro Police in the UK says that they're like trying to do some kind of purge of Freemasons in their ranks. And yeah, so it says two-thirds of our officers and staff surveyed agree that this policy is needed. We think the majority of the public would also agree. There have been calls going back a number of years for the role of Freemasonry in policing to be properly addressed, including as a recommendation in the report of the Daniel Morgan Independent Panel. So I looked into this actually, and I saw that a lot of it is due to the fact that in the UK at least, probably elsewhere, um, you know, uh, there are say the cop is a Freemason and the judge is a Freemason, that can create an unfair like situation for people in the court system. So that is actually the specific concern that they're talking about. It's not actually how the conversation centers here in the US, but I just thought that that was something kind of funny to point out. But yeah, while we're I think that was the main news of the day stuff that I wanted to get to. but there's also a lot of new Epstein updates too. So I'll jump into that as well. Let's see. All right. Gotta share my screen though. So I need to confirm that this is, it seems like she is legit. I'm not familiar with her. I don't know if I've seen her on the news or anything. Seems like she's got 41.6K followers. She's followed by a legit researcher. So I feel like we'll do some research on stream after I go through this. But I just flagged this to kind of check out. So I'm gonna copy her name and but yeah, I guess I'm burying the lead a bit here. She named two people that I don't think have been named before. One of them was named by Virginia, but that's not this one. Michael Bay. I guess this is the film director, Michael Bay, and she tagged him too. But I don't think that that's the same Michael Bay. Would she? She she probably tagged the wrong guy by accident. Unless he only has 75K followers, and maybe he just stopped tweeting. Maybe. But he's like pretty famous, you would think. Well, anyway, it does look like Julie Bryant is Juliet Bryant, right? That's it. Yeah. It looks like she is legit. I'll pull that up in a minute, but she is accusing Michael Bay here. I hope that was not her picture at the time. Jeez. And then there's another one here. Bill Richardson. This guy is in the files. He was accused of, well, he admitted going to the ranch in New Mexico. He said he was there with his wife, which seems to be the excuse that all of them use. It's like weird. But yeah, so he was also accused by Virginia, and she has, he's of course denied it. He's still not disgraced as she should be. But yeah, those are two new names that have been thrown down. Oh, I keep on popping in that way. Let's see. Yeah, it does look like there are court. I did find a couple of links here. This one right here talks about her book that was released. So, and this was earlier this year. This is a legit press release. So yeah, that's at least, I don't think Michael Bay has been called out, and this is more corroboration to Virginia's story. So let's see Bill Richardson. Hopefully, let me off screen. I'm going to go to epsteinsecretsrealquick.com, and I actually did get an account. So now hopefully we can browse it, but because of the fact that that web thing is so heavy on the it seems to be a lot of data that it needs to process. Hopefully it doesn't slow down the stream. It did a little bit last night. Let me sign in here, and then we'll search for this guy's name and see what his mentions were in the documents. I searched for Michael Bay. I couldn't find him, but I could find this guy. She's also in the flight logs as well. Yeah, I'm not sure if these are one of the 10 co-conspirators. That it's possible because of the fact that she's naming them, and they were already in the files from the depositions or the interviews. So that's highly possible. But yeah, we'll definitely see on that. And in addition to that, there was another, and this I found to be quite a surprise at first, but then when I did some research on the guy, I learned that it shouldn't have been a surprise at all. So this picture was actually discovered quite a while ago, but it's making its rounds again. And I'm surprised that this wasn't, I think it's making its rounds again because of the fact that she's been doing a lot of media recently. But let's see. Right here, Jack Nicholson, the famous actor, is pictured with this victim, Lisa Phillips, in 2002. And yeah, that is her, and that's Jack Nicholson. And when I looked the situation up further, it turns out that he has a history of being abusive with sex workers. And this was back in, what is this, 25-year-old article, 2000. So Jack Nicholson has been hit with a lawsuit alleging that he promised $1,000 and then assaulted her when she asked for the money. And it gets into here the fact that she sustained like significant injuries. Medical bills were over $60,000. And, she was left with literally like life-threatening injuries. So, it's not a big shock that he was involved. Just because he was talking to her, I guess, on the mainstream, they would say it's not any indication of wrongdoing. But I would think that, yeah. And she was one of the people who publicly said that she wanted the people to be named. So, yeah. So that's three new names that have came out. Yeah, that's a good point. Oh wait, my mic? Yeah. I'm still getting used to the audio situation. It'll improve over time for sure. But definitely let me know. I appreciate the feedback for sure. Yeah. So let's look up this Bill Richardson guy and see what his mentions are in here. This is going a little bit slow. Let's see. Search. Why isn't this working now? I wonder if it's because a lot of people are using it, or it's because I'm trying to stream. Let's see if it'll go to the network. If it doesn't, I might have to look up separately. Might just have to find his Wikipedia entry or something. If we can't get the search to come up. Why isn't that working? Oh, wait, here we go. Let's see if we could get the they're showing me all the individual files, but they're not giving me the summary. But yeah, I do remember that he was accused by. All right, let's see. It looks like we have a news article from last year. So let's check this out while we wait for that to load. So Bill Richardson has served our state as a 2-term governor and congressman. I guess this is local news in New Mexico. I'm pretty sure that's where he was from, I believe. Should have brought up his Wikipedia. Let's see. And when he left office, he continued building his legacy by negotiating the release of international hostages and servicemen. That's up until his recent death. Oh, okay, so he's dead now. There has been another side of Richardson that has been described in a recent unsealing of depositions taken from women who claim they performed acts for Jeffrey Epstein and his powerful friends while they were underage. The billionaire, who had a mansion here in New Mexico, was charged with trafficking underage girls before he killed himself while he was in jail. Oh, I shouldn't have said that. They're going to clap me. So yeah, take note that this was a politician in New Mexico where his ranch was. So, there was definitely probably some protection happening there. These are depositions of interviews that were released by the courts, and it doesn't mean that they're all true. And so we have to assume the presumption of innocence here. Yeah, until it's a whole bunch of different women who have never met each other from all over the place saying it. The document contains more than 900 pages, released last week, describing what occurred in Epstein's ranch in Santa Fe County and his estates in New York, Florida, and the U.S. Virgin Islands. So yeah, let's see. Okay, here we go. Back here at the web, let's see what we got with Bill Richardson. Here we go. Now I think this will give me the summary. But yeah, I mean, it's definitely kind of strange that wherever he was, whether it was Florida, New York, New Mexico, the Virgin Islands, he was in with the local politicians. And, he kind of had them in his back pocket, or, he had blackmail on them because, he had invited them to his parties and his ranch or whatever. So hopefully, yeah, this'll load up in a minute and we could take a look at his situation there. Um, Unfortunately, I couldn't find Michael Bay in here, but there's a chance that he is either in the redacted portions or he is in the portions that are currently being held back. I haven't heard anything. Maybe I could look up Michael Bay allegations, see if just seeing if there's like a pattern of behavior. Um yeah, it seems like it's loading. Okay, here we go. Bill Richardson. He has 87 mentions in the files that have been released so far. So he's the former New Mexico governor, appears in the Epstein files primarily through allegations made by Virginia Giuffre, who claimed Maxwell directed her to give him a massage in New Mexico when she was underage. Richardson received $50,000 in campaign contributions from Epstein's and appears in flight logs, personal correspondence, and court filings. Okay. Why does he need to appear in flight? Why is he appearing in flight logs if he has never been to any of the other places and has only been to the New Mexico ranch once? Interesting. Richardson appears in high signal documents, including Virginia Giuffre's deposition testimony alleging trafficking. Flight logs show 2011 travel with Epstein and personal emails, including lunch meeting document in mention 25. He's named in court filings where attorneys sought to depose him as a potential witness and appears in Epstein's personal contact book alongside other political figures. Multiple news articles reference his connections to Epstein's Zorro Ranch in New Mexico, where Epstein owned what Richardson himself, the largest home in the state. Wow. So the governor is saying that his house was the largest in the state. And I guess this is just probably a summary of what I just read. Yeah, here we go. Attorneys in the Giuffre case attempted to depose Richardson as a witness, though this was blocked by Epstein's legal team. Richardson denied all allegations through spokespeople, stating that he was neither a target nor subject of an investigation and had only visited the ranch once with his wife. Yeah. Yet he appears in 2011 flight logs traveling with Epstein from British Virgin Islands to US Virgin Islands. Let's see. Let's see if anything is going on with Michael Bay. No? There's probably going to be a new entry in here soon, I'm guessing. All right. So yeah, that is the new names that have come through. Another thing that I wanted to share that was really weird was this Epstein Reddit page, right? It is probably the most oh wow, that hey, that definitely is a character description for sure when they're mistreating actors on set and animals as well. Um this is like probably the most popular Epstein Reddit page that I've seen, and it is filled with people who are like Jeffrey Epstein defenders or skeptics, it says. This subreddit serves as a hub for civil, intelligent, evidence driven Epstein discourse that discusses claims, court documents, and journalist accounts through a more skeptical lens. So, um, a lot of these posts are directly from Alan Dershowitz, like linking to his Substack, um, saying that the victims are lying and all this stuff, and that other Michael Tracy guy who's like been crashing out on Twitter about this, trying to say that you know railing against the age of consent laws and such. Um, let's see the kind of crazy stuff that we could find in here. Um, yeah, so it's basically saying here's a headshot from a victim who is expressing love for Epstein, and it's like, yeah, they're trying to twist uh, the kind of manipulation that happens there. They're trying to just gloss over that and act like these underage girls who, many of whom had been in very messed up situations their whole lives and really did not know how to navigate that situation. They're kind of just acting like they should have known what they were doing and known what they were getting involved in. And I've said many times before, if you read Virginia Giuffre's book, you will be able to tell that there was really no way that they could have prevented what happened to them because they were so young and so vulnerable and really had no other support system. So let's see. Some of these are okay. But see, look at this. This is the lawyer for the victims. It says Brad Edwards bamboozled Thomas Massey into believing there are 20 men accused and known by the FBI, but Edwards said that these men are not even guilty of anything they could be arrested for. It's not something that prosecutors are ever going to be arrest a person for. So a lot of the people in here are, you know, they're trying to say that just because you can't bring a case with this evidence means it's not relevant. When these are some of the hardest types of cases to prosecute in many cases, and that's why they go, undealt with. Um, but yeah, let's see again. That's a kind of a weird one. Um, let's see. Some of these are okay, but a lot of them are very, very, very weird. And Alan Dershowitz is a big, big poster here. Michael Tracy, Virginia Roberts was Giuffre was a public figure for well over a decade. She's now deceased. This particular photo has been in the public domain for years. And people wonder why they're not getting all the Epstein files. So yeah, it's kind of wild. Um, and I'm surprised that this is the biggest page on this topic. Um, but anyway, I think it's time for us to get into the live research with the intelligence connections for Jeffrey Epstein. So let's start on that. Let's see. Let me close some of these tabs so I don't. All right. So yeah, last night we talked a lot about Robert Maxwell, and I believe that that is where the intelligence connections for this whole organization kind of began. This whole family type organization. There's probably multiple families involved with this, but it starts with Maxwell. And I talked about this yesterday, but I don't think I actually showed the screen because I was, you know, trying to figure things out and I sharing the wrong one. But it's pretty well established that he was a uh, triple agent, most likely, for the MI6 in the UK, the Soviet KGB, and the Israeli Mossad. So, shortly before his death, a former employee of Israel's military intelligence directorate approached a number of news organizations in Britain and the US with the allegation that Maxwell and the Daily Mirror's foreign editor were both longtime agents of the Mossad. He also claimed that in 1986, Maxwell informed the Israeli embassy in London that Mordechai Vanunu revealed information about Israel's nuclear capability to the Sunday Times, then to the Daily Mirror. Vanunu subsequently kidnapped by the Mossad and smuggled to Israel, convicted of treason and imprisoned for 18 years. Journalist Seymour Hersh later came out with similar allegations. Then Maxwell was alleged to have distributed a bugged version of the software Promise to a plethora of national governments and global financial institutions that enabled mass spying by the government of Israel. Maxwell was allegedly able to sell the bugged Israeli version of Promise software to Sandia National Laboratories and Los Alamos National Laboratories, two of the most important nuclear research and national security facilities in the United States. Maxwell allegedly employed John Tower, chairman of the United States Senate Committee on Armed Forces, to facilitate the sales of the bugged Israeli version of Promise software to Sandia and Los Alamos. So, his intelligence connections are very clear. And, so it's also known that he introduced Epstein to Ghislaine Maxwell, his daughter. So definitely something going on there. Now, for Epstein's history, I think the best place to start is at the Dalton School. And for there, I think we should start with Donald Barr, because Donald Barr is the person that, whoa, what happened to my, okay. I don't like when I lose my dark mode. I don't like, let's see. Yeah, Donald Barr, and this is Bill Barr's father, the one who was in charge of the prison system when Epstein, ended himself, allegedly. Probably not. So, thing to know about Donald Barr is that he was a member of the Office of Strategic Services. Now, this was the basically the CIA before the CIA was the CIA. It was like a intelligence agency that was happening prior to the Second World War. So when you're a part of one of these intelligence agencies, you just don't like stop being a member of it. You go into other sections of society and you most likely still retain some level of those connections. So he was an administrator at Columbia University, and then he was the headmaster at the Dalton School in New York City. And he hired Epstein at the Dalton School. And that's when he started to kind of rise up through, the ranks of society, I guess you could say. But let's see if we could find out anything else significant about Donald Barr's career, because the main thing that I know about him is that he wrote an alien porn called Space Relations. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I haven't read it yet, but I am kind of curious. I mean, I like some of that fantasy stuff, like A Court in Thornton and Roses is pretty cool, but like I don't know if Donald Barr can hold it down like that. Um, but yeah, let's see what else he had in here. For a brief time at the end of his tenure as headmaster, Jeffrey Epstein was employed as the math teacher. It is unclear. Oh, they're saying it is unclear whether Barr hired Epstein, but this is kind of like I've definitely seen it in numerous sources. But I guess hey, it's disputed. I guess, but regardless, Epstein was hired at the Dalton School at the time when he was the headmaster, probably in charge of hiring people, and they most likely interacted. Um, and so, yeah, here's this. In 1973, Barr published Space Relations, a science fiction novel about a planet ruled by oligarchs who engage in slavery. Wow, I didn't realize that part. It has been noted that the plot of the novel anticipates the crimes of Epstein and his accomplice Ghislaine Maxwell. Wow, I did not. I just thought it was like alien porn. I didn't realize that it had that sick element to it. Oh, that book, A Court of Thornton and Roses. It's like a fantasy book. Yeah, but it's like a romance fantasy book that's super popular. But yeah, probably nothing like Donald Barr's space relations, I'm sure. Even though it's wild that they still have that like in a glass case at the Dalton School or something like that. Um, so yeah, let's see. Barr also reviewed books for the New York Times. Not much there aside from that, but that is definitely significant. So from there, Epstein goes on to Bear Stearns, where he is hired by this guy named Alan Greenberg. We can look him up as well. So this guy had some interesting connections as well. He was the CEO of Bear Stearns from 1978 to 1993. So this was a couple years before they ended up collapsing. Um, he was also an author. While serving as chairman, Bear Stearns oversaw the collapse of the company. Okay, he did oversee the collapse of the company in March 2008. So he was the chairman of the executive committee after he was CEO. Very interesting. He was subsequently involved in the talks with JP Morgan Chase, which eventually bought out the company. Okay. So the other interesting thing about this guy is that he was also connected to Roy Cohn, who we talked about last night. So let's see. Wait. Let's see. Where is. There was this one. Yeah. It's a paywall. Ah, man. Well, that article, let's see if we can read more. Well, I'm gonna have to get like let's see if we can get a hard source here. Because I like to bring up the hard sources so I'm not just going by things I heard and stuff like that. Um, I'm doing the wrong screen. Let's see. Yeah, because I want to actually make sure that I'm grounded in something. Let's see, because this here is asking what's the direct line with Roy Cohn, and it should be Alan Greenberg. Okay, so there's a dinner. This is what I heard about. So let's see where this starts. 2 years later, Ronald Lauder, whose only professional experience at that point was working for his parents' cosmetic company, was appointed to serve as the United States Deputy Assistant Secretary of Defense for the European and NATO affairs. I love how these titles are so long when they give people who shouldn't have a job, and they just make up these really long title, Deputy Assistant. Soon after his appointment, he served on the Dinner Tribute Committee for a dinner hosted by the Jewish fraternity and strongly pro-Israel organization B'nai B'rith, the parent organization of the controversial Anti-Defamation League in Roy Cohn's honor. Cohn's influential father, Albert Cohn, was longtime president. So the dinner specifically sought to honor Cohn for his pro-Israel advocacy and his efforts to fortify Israel's economy. And its honorary chairman included media mogul Rupert Murdoch, who's another connection with at least the Maxwells, Donald Trump, and then head of Bear Stearns, Alan Greenberg, all of whom are connected to Epstein. Let's see what this... see if Alan is in here. There are 76 Allens in this one. Let's see. Not in this one. But either way, there are some threads linking Epstein's boss at Bear Stearns to Roy Cohn, which is just another interesting connection. So then, after leaving Bear Stearns in 1981, Epstein founded Intercontinental Assets Group, and he described it as a financial bounty hunter organization. So he said that he was recovering hidden money, essentially. And during that time, he was said to work with Adnan Khashoggi, Douglas Leese. Khashoggi was a Saudi arms dealer, and he was also involved with Iran-Contra, which stuff came out on that recently. Douglas Leese, who is a British arms dealer connected to MI6, and also Steve Hoffenberg claims that Leese introduced him to Epstein. So there's a couple of interesting connections there. So that the period that he was at Bear Stearns is kind of one of the most mysterious parts of his life, I'd say. Not a ton is known except for the fact that he rose through the ranks pretty quickly. He lied about he lied on his resume, and he got caught. And instead of trying to lie his way out of it, he actually just told the truth and said, yeah, it was, I lied because you would have never accepted me anyway, and then kind of flipped it around on them, and then they let him keep his position. And then he just continued to kind of rise through the ranks there, mostly through kissing ass, is the most honest descriptions that I've heard. But yeah, so that period of time is a little bit mysterious. But after that, we know that he hooked up with Les Wexner, which is kind of where his wealth really starts to explode. Les Wexner is the founder of Victoria's Secret, and he is just a general business tycoon from Ohio, and also probably involved with the mafia. There are a lot of different situations where I'll just get into the main one. He is suspected of being behind like a mafia style murder of a lawyer named Arthur Shapiro. So let's take a look at this situation here, and then we'll look at Les Wexner's connections to Epstein and some of the other stuff there. So Arthur Shapiro was in trouble. The shy, secretive lawyer, a partner in the Columbus, Ohio law firm Schwartz, Shapiro, Kelm, and Warren, was under investigation by the Internal Revenue Service for failing to file income tax returns for 7 years and for possible investments in shady tax shelters. In March 1985, Shapiro was due to testify before a grand jury over his tax dodging and whether anyone had helped him hide the money. What he might reveal, no one knew, but he and his firm had several high-profile clients and a long history in Columbus. But Arthur Shapiro never made it to the stand. A day before his scheduled testimony, someone fired 2 bullets point blank into his head as he fled from a secretive breakfast meeting held in his red BMW at a Columbus cemetery. The mob-style murder has never been solved. Shapiro reportedly personally oversaw the account for The Limited, the clothing company owned by billionaire Les Wexner, whose empire also included popular brands like Lane Bryant Express and Victoria's Secret. Neither Wexner, whose communications team declined to comment for this piece, nor anyone tied to him were ever thought to be involved in Arthur Shapiro's death. Instead, a business partner of Shapiro's was the prime suspect. The case's curious twists and turns, though, would result in a controversial police report that accused some of Wexner's business associates of having mob associations. Shapiro's name would also appear decades later, seemingly as a red herring in an FBI file involving the activities of another man important to Wexner's businesses, the financier Jeffrey Epstein. But for the most part, Arthur Shapiro's death became just that, a footnote in a bureaucratic file. So this is, it kind of gets deeper into that, and if you want to research the story further, you can. But it essentially gets into the fact that this guy was very likely taken out by the mafia, by somebody who, he was going to testify about in this case of whoever he was messing around with their money or hiding their money or whatever was happening. And so this was one of the main things that kind of linked him to violence, but they were also very close to the crime families in New York. I'm not sure if that's mentioned here, but that is mentioned in another article I found where Mike Jeffries, I'm not sure if I came across that one yet. I'll have to look into that though. So the other thing about Wexner is, for some reason, Epstein, or he signed over power of attorney to Epstein. So he essentially had free reign with his bank account and all of his assets. So something's really strange there. Like, Wexner seemed to be a massive gangster in his own right, and now he's basically getting blackmailed by this guy, which seems to be the case. But then they also seem to have a fairly close relationship as well. So it's kind of strange, and it's really hard to know what was going on there. So the other wild thing is that, let's take a look at Wexner's Wikipedia page, and let's look at Southern Air Transport. So this is a wild story. And I believe that this was fairly recent, that this was, or maybe not. I thought that this was fairly new information, but maybe not. Let's I'll jump into it in a minute. I got to remember to take a drink during these streams, because I be talking a lot. Wexner hired Jeffrey Epstein as his personal financial manager from 1987 to 2007. He was the primary client of Epstein, who claimed to only work with clients with a net worth of over $1 billion. Wexner purchased his New York property, the Hubert N. Strauss House, in 1989 and sold it to Epstein in the mid-1990s following Wexner's marriage to Abigail. I'm pretty sure he gave that to him or sold it to him for a very cheap price. In July 1991, Wexner granted Epstein power of attorney, and he also instated him as a trustee on the board of the Wexner Foundation. So this was just probably a couple years after meeting him. In the 1990s, Les Wexner and Jeffrey Epstein were involved in relocating Southern Air Transport, a CIA front organization with ties to the Iran-Contra affair and alleged CIA drug smuggling, from Miami to Columbus. So this is confirmed. This is Wikipedia confirmed by multiple mainstream news outlets. Southern Air transported goods related to Wexner's businesses, but in 1996, customs agents found a hidden shipment of cocaine on one of the planes. Southern Air was shut down in 1998 after Wexner had received federal aid for relocation of the airline, just weeks before the CIA Inspector General released its official findings on the Contra cocaine trafficking allegations. Wexner had been accused of failing to take action when complaints were raised against Epstein after executive of L Brands reported in the mid-1990s that Epstein was abusing his power and his connection to Wexner by posing as a recruiter for Victoria's Secret models. Yeah, he definitely used that a lot in his schemes. The fact that he was connected to that business. Let's see if there's anything else related. So the Southern Air Transport was the main thing that I wanted to get in here, because the rest of this is basically just his personal personal allegations, which have been covered extensively. He might actually face some consequences at some point, but it still doesn't really look like it's happening anytime soon. So let me see what was next here. So let's see. Yeah, let's take. I don't know if I can.
Contra scandal exploded into public view after a cargo plane
Let's see if I can actually share this. I might have an issue sharing videos.
was shot down over Nicaragua. The aircraft belonged to Southern Air Transport, a CIA front company used to move weapons in secret. After the scandal broke, one man quietly helped clean up the aftermath: Jeffrey Epstein. Epstein assisted in relocating Southern Air Transport's aircraft to a new base in Columbus, Ohio. The same planes that once carried arms to Nicaragua and Iran soon began servicing the retail empire of Leslie Wexner, the pro-Israel billionaire owner of Victoria's Secret and Abercrombie & Fitch. Just a few years later, in 1991, Wexner granted Epstein power of attorney over his vast fortune. The move came as Wexner was under scrutiny following the mafia-style murder of a lawyer connected to his company named Arthur Shapiro. Epstein's role in inheriting and repurposing the Southern Air Transport planes was just one of his many links tying him to the Iran-Contra network. He also moved in elite circles with major arms dealers like Adnan Khashoggi and Douglas Leese, figures known or alleged to have been involved in Iran-Contra. A recent profile of Epstein revealed another striking detail. During the 1980s, Epstein lived with John Stanley Pottinger, a figure who also played a key role in CIA-backed efforts to traffic weapons illegally to Iran. This story of Epstein, Iran-Contra, and hidden power is told through the trail of Southern Air Transport aircraft and private emails from Epstein's own leaked Yahoo inbox. You can read the full investigation on Dropsite News.
That was the drop site report that came out a couple weeks ago. And, that really that was one of the most telling pieces of evidence I think we have on the whole intelligence connections. So after that, let's see what else I had. There's also the Ehud Barak stuff. So he had we're really still not entirely clear on the extent of what was going on with Epstein and Ehud Barak, but they had a intelligence offering similar to Palantir, I believe, that they were shopping around to different governments. And I think we can probably dig in a little bit into the emails between them and see what was going on there. And yeah, there was definitely cocaine running in Arkansas as well, uh, while Bill Clinton was in office there. And the other wild thing about the Clintons is that I've read a couple places that the show Ozark on Netflix is actually based on the Clintons, which the location definitely adds up. You know what I mean? And the some of the narratives line up as well. So that is pretty wild if you watch that with that through that lens is probably pretty interesting. So let's look into the JMAL stuff, because there was some evidence there, I think, of his intelligence connections. So let's see. let's go into the photos. There were quite a few things in here, one of which I noticed last night that gave me pause. And this makes it very easy to scroll through them. But yeah, like, look at this. She's with these Russian soldiers. So this makes me think of that whole triple agent thing. Like, how many different countries are y'all involved with on this spy intelligence level? Why is that not all of them are loading? Let's see. There's also a couple of photos of passports. He had multiple passports. I was going to look at which countries they were from. Maybe I could just search Epstein's passports and they'll come up. But because I think one of them might have been Saudi Arabian, if I'm not mistaken. Why isn't it up at the top though? For some reason, I was thinking it was up at the top before. Let me search the photos. Passport. Let's see. It looks like those are passports for his workers or maybe other people. Huh. Let me search another. Let's see here. Yeah, we have this right here. Requests for multiple passports. That's a US passport. This was the one that I saw the other day in the files. This one right here. Austria. Let's see where this. Yeah, this was the one I saw in the files here. Oh, wait. I'm sharing the wrong screen. Hold up. Share this tab instead. All right. Yeah, so it's listing his residence as Saudi Arabia. That's what it was. But this is apparently an Austrian passport. Now, there's also reports of him. Earlier on, we reported that images of an old U.S. passport belonging to Epstein had been included in the data release. So he has multiple passports from multiple different countries. And I guess they're legit. I mean, you could probably do fake passports, but it's probably hard to fake these days. I'm not sure how that works. But let's see. There is that. So let's take a look from there into his emails with Ehud Barak, because let's see, jmail.world, and I want to find what the I can't remember what the name of their business was. If anybody remembers, throw it in the chat. His business with Ehud Barak. Let's see. I knew I saw it like a day or two ago, because that would make it a little bit easier to search. Let's see. Ehud Barak. So yeah, they up until the time that he was arrested, Epstein and Ehud Barak were in close contact. They they were business partners. The project that they were working on was probably, you know, their pet project for both of them. I'm not sure why his name was taken away from the let's see. There he is. It won't allow me to just search his articles though, or his emails. Wonder why that is. Yeah, okay. Let's see. For some reason, I'm not getting an answer on what the name of the business was from Google. I know it's public though. Let's see how I can type this. What was the name of Epstein's intelligence business with Ehud Barak? Let's see if this comes up with anything. Yeah. Jeffrey Epstein helped around. Yeah, I think Drop Site should have something. I know that their articles are usually super dense though, so I'll try to go through this quick and find it. Cote d'Ivoire, Ivory Coast. Oh, here's some of the relevant emails. Okay. From Leslie Goff to Jeffrey Epstein, apparent appointment with Nina Keita and her cousin, cocktail reception. So this is just establishing a timeline. Epstein discusses October travel with his assistant, including stopping Cote d'Ivoire. Let's see what we got here. Nope. We got Chief of Staff of Erdo. He arrives tomorrow. It looks like most of these emails, they're just establishing a timeline. Maybe I'll do some of this research independently and then come back on that one maybe tomorrow. But yeah, I think those were some of the main ones that I wanted to get through. But there were actually some other developments outside of that I could touch on. I'm not sure if you guys heard of this wild story. It's kind of somewhat related to this because, of course, just because Jeffrey Epstein is gone doesn't mean that this doesn't mean that this stuff stopped happening. And let's see if so there has been this Kentucky shooting that is coming to a trial now. Let's see. Pretty sure this is the case. Yeah. So in Kentucky, I think it was a couple years ago. When was this? 2024. Yeah. So a cop in this small Kentucky town goes into this judge's chambers that he is very, familiar with. He's been a part of the small community, like law enforcement for a long time. He walks in and he shoots this judge and takes him out, right? And then he's acting all paranoid and everything, like he was afraid to like go with the cops. And then it turns out that this judge was suspected of abusing like women that were charged with crimes and possibly some kind of trafficking thing going on. So this is like talking about how the family of the judge is suing. The family of a Kentucky judge shot and killed in his courthouse chambers has filed civil lawsuit against the sheriff charged in his death and 3 sheriff's employees. Kimberly Mullins filed the lawsuit on behalf of herself and 2 minor daughters. The lawsuit stems from the September 19, 2024 shooting of district judge in his chambers. Steins is charged with murder in the case. Allegations against the sheriff's office. The lawsuit alleges that 3 sheriff's office employees were aware of Steins' concerning and dangerous behavior before the shooting, but failed to warn Judge Mullins to take steps to control Steins. According to the complaint, Steins exhibited anxious, paranoid, and psychotic conduct that posed a foreseeable risk of violence prior to the shooting. So yeah, like this guy just goes crazy out of nowhere, and people are saying that there's no reason for it. And then his daughter had to come forward and do some TikTok saying that she wasn't a victim of this judge and that wasn't his reason for shooting, which is weird that came to that. So let's see what else it says. The county sheriff's office, by and through its agents, service, and employee, is mandated. So they're saying that the police department what should have been responsible for preventing this cop from going in and shooting the judge. But let's see if we could find something a little bit better. Yeah, this is that situation. I'm afraid to bring up another video until I get that streaming situation figured out. But let's see what we got here.
We have more details and more video footage related.
Let's see if this can actually, maybe this will go. Let's see.
To the case against former Letcher County Sheriff Mickey Steins, who was caught
too
on
low.
camera shooting and killing District Judge Kevin Mullins nearly 1 year ago. WIMT's Buddy Forbes shares the latest.
There's all kinds of people in here just running around chaotic, so how am I going to tell you what happened?
This is the cop, the guy that's handcuffed right now. That's the cop that went in and shot the judge.
Yeah.
The defense team for former Letcher County Sheriff Mickey Steins introduced new materials to the court this week, supporting the motion to dismiss the murder indictment based on what they claim are well-corroborated mental health concerns that went undisclosed during the original grand jury testimony.
You don't want to talk about it? Okay.
You see that scene that just passed. He was in the chamber with the judge. Yeah, so he was in the chamber with the judge, and you can tell that he was arguing with the judge about something. They don't have audio in there, but yeah, exactly. And this was apparently going on for years. So I'm not sure what this cop saw or what the situation, but you could tell here he is afraid of everybody at the police department. So who knows who is in on this? People had to know.
No,
Mickey, why in the world would we do that?
Support documents claim the Commonwealth falsely testified to not being aware of Steins displaying mental health issues, saying several reported interviews with those close to Steins had shared concerns about his mental state, including claims of paranoia about his family being killed. Kentucky State Police body cam footage of the hours following the shooting shows Steins continually raising concerns about his own safety while in custody.
Why do you think we would do something to you, Mickey? I'm just curious.
Asking several times to see his family.
I want to see my daughter in person, and then after that, I'll tell you everything.
Court documents obtained by WIMT included a transcript of the grand jury testimony.
That may be why people thought his daughter was involved, because he asked to speak to his daughter. And then, somebody just commented that he saw the judge's number in his daughter's phone, or saw his daughter's number in the judge's phone. That's crazy. Let's see.
Script, which has now been sealed by the court.
So was it something to do with your family or anything like that?
In which investigators say Steins' daughter and wife denied any involvement with the victim, District Judge Kevin Mullins. The document claims the reported stress and anxiety was connected to a civil suit involving a sex scandal in the judge's quarters, citing a local attorney who reportedly spoke to Mullins about Steins prior to the murder, saying the former sheriff, quote, couldn't take this kind of pressure.
No, there's something else. Somebody's in. No.
The support documents also included a triage assessment from the Leslie County Detention Center,
Come on out, Mickey.
which claims Steins was in an active state of psychosis days after the shooting, showing no recollection of recent events. Since Steins' attorneys introduced plans for an insanity defense, the Commonwealth submitted a motion of intent to have him examined again by a private mental health specialist. The Commonwealth also requested a change of venue in the case. However, the defense team argues there is no place in the nation where the case has not been in the headlines. In Letcher County, Buddy Ford.
Yeah, that is just, this one has kind of flown under the radar. I haven't seen it getting a whole lot of attention. But you know, just a cop walking in and shooting a judge is just nuts. You know, but yeah, that and there was one other story I saw today that was worth mentioning, and that is that it looks like they're finally going to arrest that David guy for the murder of that young girl, Celeste Rivas Hernandez. So this is from TMZ at least. So usually they've been pretty accurate on this, even though it is TMZ. So it says, according to TMZ, David will likely be indicted in connection with the death of 14-year-old Celeste Rivas Hernandez, whose remains were found in the trunk of a Tesla registered to the singer in September. So yeah, like he should have been arrested a long time ago. The news was reported Monday morning. The outlet said it cited sources with the matter who said the grand jury that's hearing the case will be asked to hand down an indictment. Multiple sources say that authorities, including prosecutor, believe that David was involved in the death of Rivas Hernandez. So it's not clear when he is going to be arrested, but it seems like it's actually finally going to happen. And something that I've talked a bit about is that, like, it seems that he could be involved in that 764 like online cult that you know, it's just basically children extorting each other and forcing each other to do acts of violence and things like that, or it's people who are very, very messed up in the head and committing acts of violence, and then just like sharing it online and doing like gore stuff. One really weird angle that I shared this on stream before, but this is David's logo apparently, and it does have a 7 and a 6 and a 4 in it, which is kind of crazy if you want to get out into there. But I mentioned this before, but I do think that they are involved in a lot of the shootings that have taken place recently that don't seem to make sense, where the you know, where the people who carry out the acts of violence like don't seem to have a clear ideology or a political goal, and they're kind of all over the place, and it seems like the intention is just to kind of create chaos. That's the whole thing driving this group. So I think, you know, we don't really know a ton about it yet, but we do know that a couple of massive acts of violence have been attached to it. So that's just something I wanted to throw in there. But I think, oh yeah, the Bayou situation. I haven't done enough research on that, but I have been like watching stories pop up for the past month about a potential serial killer out there. But I'll have to dig more into that and see if I could find some more specifics. I've also been looking into the whole like Erica Kirk Romanian charity thing, and it definitely seems sketch. Like the whole charity thing seems very sketch. But I have found a bit of a problem. This Colonel Bush or something, Colonel Otto Bush, I think. Otto Busher, maybe. He is the guy who, in all these videos that are getting shared around, this is the guy that is apparently like supposed to be the smoking gun. that he somehow was convicted of crimes related to trafficking out there, but he he still has his LinkedIn up, and I don't see any news stories out about that. I heard that people in Canada can get different results when searching his name. I don't know if anybody's from Canada, but if you could try and let me know. But if anybody has any information about this Colonel Otto Bush guy, that's legitimate, and we can kind of prove his involvement in crimes in Romania, then that would be a big unlock, because I saw a couple of like mega viral videos where they were really, really laying most of their argument on this guy, and I'm not sure. I just couldn't find anything that I could really use. So yeah, I'm trying to look into that one too, because there's definitely something sketchy going on with her, and there's just more, like, even the people on that side of the aisle is doubting her, and kind of really seeming like something's weird is going on there, and it kind of casts doubt on that whole organization. But I think I'm going to leave it there for tonight. I really appreciate everybody joining me. And yeah, I will catch you tomorrow, and we'll get into some of those other things that we discussed. Peace.